My name is Sandra Whiting, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as your MC for this evening. I'm also a proud instructor at ICL. And before we get started, like Marissa, who is a friend of our good friend Olivia, I too got involved because Olivia said, hey, want to know what I'm doing? How many of you? Probably everybody in this room. And that's who she is. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce Dawn Miracle, one of ICL's brilliant instructors who will give our land acknowledgement. She's an Indigenous research consultant, trainer, instructor, MC, facilitator, an award-winning diversity organizer, professional speaker, lifelong activist, a Mohawk woman from Tyendinaga Mohawk territory who sits with the Bear clan. Whew. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and it is so great to see you again tonight. How great is it to have everybody in the house tonight and to see each other's faces? Yeah. Come on, I didn't feel that from you guys. Can I feel the love a little bit more? Yeah. I am loving every single moment of this to be able to see all of your incredible faces, the new faces, the familiar faces, and the soon-to-be familiar faces as well, too. So let me begin. If I can get everybody to put their feet both firmly on the ground, give yourself a little wiggle so that you can kind of feel yourself firmly planted. And I'm going to ask you to wiggle your toes and imagine that you're wiggling the toes on the ground. Think about what's your favorite type of earth? Is it sand? Are your feet wiggling in the sand? Is it part of the Canadian Shield? Is it stone? Are your feet wiggling on the stone? Is the sun hitting it? Is it warm? Do you like grass? Do you like your feet wiggling in the grass on a warm, sunny day? So are your toes wiggling? Keep wiggling your toes. Are your toes wiggling in the grass? Or do you like sand? And is it sand that's underneath the water? Do you like the rippled sand that's underneath the waves of the water at the beach? So think about whatever your favorite earth is, whatever your favorite land is. And as your feet are both firmly planted on the ground, I'm going to ask you to take a few deep breaths. So breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth and in through your nose and out through your mouth. And I'm going to ask you to keep doing that a few more times as I begin to speak. But keep your feet firmly planted and don't forget to wiggle your toes every now and then if you forget about the earth that's under your feet. And so even though we're on the second floor of the building right now, I want you to imagine that we're down on the earth. And you can do this anytime you're in any building to ground yourself. And you can do it again when you get back out to the earth, whether your shoes are on or whether they're off. Of course, it's better if you're barefoot on the earth. That actually regrounds us and resends that energy from the earth back into our body, and it's healthy. Do I hear the breathing? Don't forget the breathing, because that's really, really important. And these are just one of the many, many teachings that we get from our cultures that help to ground us with Mother Earth, that help to re-energize us, that help to balance the energy that's in our bodies, that can also help to teach us about gratitude, to reconnect us, to rebalance us. And all of these teachings are so very, very important to remind us where we are, to remind us how we got here, and to reposition us in the context of our teachings and our own positionalities, regardless of where we come from, because we all share this earth, this Mother Earth in common. And so, Segos, Zewigwego, Donti Miracle Yungats, Winkwahoeka Yangahaga, Gaderi Woyansta, Toronto Nikidero. So as Sandra said, my name is Dawn T. Miracle. The T is important because there are 6 Dawn Miracles from my reserve, and I'm the only T that I know of. And I sit with the Bear Clan, which is the medicine clan. And as an educator, somebody once told me that that was the wrong place to be, that I should help. But as somebody who, like I said on my picture in the back, my mom says I came out of her womb an activist. And so it's never too young to start, apparently. that we can always, always make a change in our world, and we can always impact others. And it's never too soon to start caring about our community and making a change within that community. So for me, being part of the Bear Clan, the Medicine Clan, is caring about our communities. And being an educator means that I get to help teach about our communities and help to teach storytelling as part of ICL, and teach about how we can care for one another and teach about how we can pay that forward. And so I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement in a good way. So don't forget to continue on with those deep breaths in through your nose and through your mouth. Don't forget to wiggle your toes, and to remember that the land that we're on, we are situated on Haudenosaunee speaking territory for thousands of years. So this land has belonged to Haudenosaunee speaking peoples, such as the Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mohawk. One only has to look at historical maps, but to more importantly listen to the oral traditions of Haudenosaunee speaking peoples, which go on to time immemorial, which is long, long, long before those maps were ever created. And those teach us that the people who have connections to this land long before history was ever written have deep, deep connections to the spaces, the rivers, and the waterways that are connected to this place called Toronto, or the place that we now call Toronto. And we have deep connections where longhouses were found, traces of longhouses were found on the waterways, such as the Rouge and the Humber rivers, and in the north of Toronto too, near present-day York University. And these deep connections also teach us about one specific treaty called the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Treaty, which is an agreement between the Haudenosaunee, or the Six Nations, of which the Mohawk is one of the Six Nations, and that's my nation, and the Anishinaabe, or Ojibwe and allied nations, to peaceably share and care for the land and the resources around the Great Lakes. And so what this means is that when nations, other nations, came through, Haudenosaunee-speaking nations, that they agreed to put their sharp implements down by the fire and to peaceably engage in relationships with us. And we call it the dish with one spoon because the dish is the environment, and we used only one spoon. So that means that people would use the spoon, which has no sharp edges, to only take what they need from the environment as they travel through our environment, to trade with us, to meet their neighbors, to travel through on their way to meet other neighboring territories and nations, to only take what they needed, and to treat each other with peace and friendship and respect, and leave enough for the coming faces and other 7 generations as well too. And so we're supposed to treat all of each other this way, and I'd like to remind all of you that as you live and work on this nation and in this territory, that you all have the same responsibilities to treat each other and the environment with kindness and respect and friendship, and leave enough for future nations as well too. So with that, as you go through this evening, I encourage all of you to remember to wiggle your toes, to remember to take deep breaths, and to remember to engage in wonderful, deep, and healthy relationships with each other and with the environment. Nyawanggoa, big thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. And we are having a video. That's what it said. Yeah? There you go.
What moves and connects is the power of storytelling, and when people dig deep and reflect on what fuels their passion, they then feel that they have the power to stand up, to speak out, to organize.
I think when we craft and work on our storytelling abilities and our narrative, it brings strength. It's like working a muscle, you know, it brings us strength and the ability for endurance.
I took the Change Leaders course in 2016. While I was there, I really focused on being able to create my narrative in a way that it was not only speaking about myself, but how does how does my story also connect with other people's stories in the community?
The storytelling was just the catalyst for that, for me, to get going and really be more active in a public way. The storytelling left me with a positive feeling that my voice could be heard.
Not everyone feels like they know how to tell a story, and it breaks storytelling down into its core elements, like step by step. Here's how you can tell a story, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that it makes that tool accessible to anybody, which is such a powerful tool.
I actually started with about 7 pages worth of a story, and we distilled that to about a page and a half. And basically what we were looking at is what was the real message, and how do we use that message to ultimately encourage folks, motivate folks, to really do that call to action.
Our constituents, ECs, often don't see themselves as advocates. They see themselves as folks who they know they're necessary. They know that the work is incredibly important. They know that their relationships with families and children are hugely important, but they just need a small prompt, a bit of a push to realize that those relationships are their superpower, and that those relationships can change the world. And ICL gave them that.
All in all, ICL speaks about storytelling a lot, and so just making sure that individual stories and experiences were at the center of the initiative and all that we did, and not me necessarily speaking for them, but just amplifying their voices, because we already know everyone has a voice. That's, I think, utilizing that, and I think that was the biggest thing I was able to take from ICL and their trainings.
You must be able to tell the stories that matter to you, that matter to both of us, and that will take us someplace else. Because the goals are never, ever, ever about a single individual. They are about creating community and teams of people that can move with you. There's a beautiful African proverb that says, you want to go fast, go it alone. If you want to go far, go with others. And I really believe that. It's not about any single individual.
When I look back, I can't help but think about the butterfly effect and how one little choice that you make, one little action that you do for your future self, for the people around you, can make a whole world of a difference.
Wow. Wow. Who else has goosebumps? These are just some of the 10,000 stories of change that we are celebrating tonight. We are so grateful that each and every one of you have been such an important part of ICL's story for the past 6 years. And as the chair of ICL Board of Directors, Emmanuel Mellis, Aman, brings more than 25 years of experience and expertise in settlement and immigration, community health, community development, peace building, and philanthropy. He's the executive director of the Network for Advancement of Black Communities, NABC, at York, and principal of Aman Consulting. Please join me in welcoming Aman.
Thank you so much, my sister Sandra. And thanks, Dawn. That was really grounding and amazing. And wow, in terms of the video that we just saw, I think for me, when I joined the board of directors, and I have some of my colleagues that I will acknowledge from the board here, I've always been intrigued by the agent of change that the institute itself is, let alone producing so many agents of change and beautiful stories that you're going to hear tonight. On behalf of the board of directors, I welcome everybody here this evening. We're in the presence of so much wisdom, beauty, so many gifts that you bring into the room and in the institute over the years, in various facets of the work that you do in supporting the institute. There are 3 words that Olivia said in the video that caught my immediate attention. It's about standing up, it's about speaking up, it's about organizing. My work in Canada, mostly with Black communities and others, takes me to focus on systems change. Systems cannot move if we don't have the frontliners that move the system. What the Institute does basically is equipping and preparing those agents of changes, whose stories you will be hearing some of them tonight. It's a remarkable system leadership institute. My colleagues here, Bob, the vice chair of the board, who's here. Perhaps Cindy might also be here from our board of directors. Cindy, welcome on the board. Do we have other board members here that I need to acknowledge? But essentially, we are servant leaders and working with Olivia and her team to make sure that the promise of change through the act of leaders comes to fruition. We're so excited to be able to celebrate the stories of change with you tonight. I won't take a lot of time, but I want to take a moment to thank Janet Solberg and the Communications Workers of America for sponsoring tonight's event. So thank you so much for the sponsorship. Thanks for all the support that you've been providing over the years to the Institute. And back to Sandra, thank you.
A man who did what he said. He said he wasn't going to talk long. I give him a clap. Give him a clap. Thank you, Aman. That was awesome. That was awesome. And now joining us tonight, including other ICL board members and VIPs like Marie Stiles, MPP from Davenport. I don't know if there's anybody else here. Pardon me? Chris Glover. Okay. Hi, Chris. Everybody say hi, Chris. Okay. We have some really incredible stories to share with you because stories shape us, who we are, who we become. Stories inspire us. They guide us. They connect us. They bring us hope. Our story is one of the most powerful tools we have as people and as leaders. Our stories can lead to change, and that is what we are celebrating tonight. And so our very first story comes to us from Mark Thompson. He's vice chair and partnership lead of the Forgiveness Project. He works with youth and young adults around themes of forgiveness, restorative justice, and conflict management. ICL is fortunate to have Mark on our team as a facilitator, and it's also been my pleasure to work personally with him. Welcome, Mark Thompson.
Thank you very much for that introduction, Sandra. And I'm happy to be here speaking with you all today. My journey with ICL began when we were working on canceling cannabis convictions and bringing together groups through CEE and the Forgiveness Project to look at canceling simple possession charges. And as I stand here today, I'm excited to know that in Bill C-5, they've added an amendment that will be helping to expunge those charges for people with simple possession charges, as well as to help those, if it does pass the Senate, to help those who have had those charges in the future and having them being expunged from their records. And today I want to tell you a little story about what kind of inspired me to make change. In telling this story, this wasn't the first instance where I had interactions like this with people in power or people within the law, but this is definitely one of those occasions where it made me kind of change how I took care of the outcome and how I changed how I approached situations like that into the future. So I was about 16 years old, and I was walking home from a mall probably around 3 p.m. through a familiar path that I traveled many times. And I was with my friend. We were in Arc, it was west of Toronto, and we were probably about 500 meters away from his home. I remember hearing a sound behind me, and someone was running towards us. They were breathing heavily. They started to ask us to stop. They started to ask us what was in our bags. They asked us to look into our bags. and I noticed that it was a security guard from a mall, and it was also a police officer. So we told them we didn't know what they were looking for or what it is that they were looking for. They continued to grab the bag from us. They started to search through the bag themselves. Two 16-year-olds, kind of confused, not knowing what's going on, feeling powerless, and a bit fearful of where the situation, this encounter could go. So after the police officer didn't find anything, he said, "Where is it?" He said, "We don't know what it is that you're looking for." He was completely out of breath as well because he had been running for a great distance. We were completely fine. We were not out of breath. We weren't running. Yet he didn't question why it was that he was out of breath, but we weren't out of breath, but he had been chasing us so long. So as we stood there, he said that we were going to have to get into cruisers. So we were kind of confused that we were in the middle of a park, and I looked behind myself to the roadway, and I see 2-3 cruisers pull up. And he says, "You're going over here." So we travel to the cruisers. He puts me and my friend in the back of the cruiser. He continues to harass us. He slaps the straw out of my friend's mouth, and he takes us around the corner and continues to look for whatever it is he's looking for. After we came around there, and this is probably about 15 to 20 minutes has passed, we had seen some friends from our school who had passed by, and they saw us in the cruiser. They were like, "What's happening here? Like, what's going on?" They were 16, 15, just like us. And at that moment, the officer started to question things, let us out of the cruiser, said that he doesn't think that it's us that he was looking for. I walked over to the security guard who initially identified us to the officer, and I asked him, like, "Are you sure it's me that you're looking for?" I looked him in his eyes and asked him if it was me that he was looking for. He didn't answer me. He just looked down, tried not to make eye contact, and that's essentially how he left the situation. In that moment, I kind of realized something for myself, which is that in the eyes of the law, you should always be innocent until proven guilty. But in the reality of policing, our systems, etc., it's completely the opposite. If you're charged for something in a newspaper, people generally think that you're guilty of it, as opposed to it being a charge that now needs to be proven in court. Things like that really made me to realize that everyone's an individual, and that you can't judge people or classify people, put them in groups just because of circumstances that have happened to them in their life, because you never know what that actual scenario, what led to that, and how it actually occurred, and if it was justified. Many people in here, you probably haven't had issues with over-policing. You probably have never been in the back of a cruiser before. Being in the back of a cruiser is very confining. It's something where you can feel powerless, like you have done something wrong when you know you haven't done anything wrong. But you've all in here at some point have probably felt powerless. You've experienced injustice, or you've seen something that was unjust, or you've witnessed something that was unfair. And that's really the feeling. And that feeling can inspire change. It can lead you to not want to feel that way at all times, but to do something different, to support those who need your support and those who need your help. And I'm going to close a bit. One of the things that I also wanted to say is just a couple of quotes for you. One is that it's better to die fighting for freedom than to be a prisoner all the days of your life. And the second one is, every time we witness injustice and do not act, we train our character to be passive in its presence, and thereby eventually losing all ability to defend ourselves and those we love. In a modern economy, it is impossible to seal oneself off from injustice. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mark. And by the way, Bill 5 will contain a section that deletes all records of drug convictions just received royal assent last Thursday and will be becoming law shortly. And now it's time to welcome the woman herself, who everybody in this room knows. And I do have to share, I'm a storyteller as a profession. Can you believe it? My mother said from the time I learned how to talk, I never stopped talking, and that's what I've been doing for a long time. But I don't think Olivia knows that there is a story of a trickster hero called Anansi. Anansi is a spider who can change from a spider into a man. And it is Anansi who owns all the stories of the world. So it is said, and so I share. And it's because of Anansi that all of you in this room has this thing that Olivia has in abundance, and it's called common sense. And Nancy gave to the world common sense And he gave it in abundance to Olivia, who then chat to everybody. And when she asks you to do anything, you have no choice but to say yes. It is my great honor, with over 35 years of experience in politics. 6 years ago, she founded the Institute for Change Leaders and is now their executive director. She says she's a recovering politician. She's a brilliant teacher, a passionate advocate, and a force to be reckoned with. I know about that for sure. It is a privilege to work alongside her and an honor to call her my friend, Olivia Shaw.
I'm not sure I have that kind of common sense, right? Back in those days, Stephen Harper seemed to think so. Wow, great, wonderful seeing you and all of the folks that are on the, yeah, on, it's okay, you don't have to turn on, it's okay, we know they're there. There are a whole lot of people on Zoom, apparently, it's okay. So a few days ago, not like 2 years, I was watching a TV series with my grandchildren, and the TV series is called Lost Ollie. Has anyone seen this, Lost Ollie? I thought, oh, some of you, okay, all right, you don't have little kids, okay. It's about a toy rabbit who's called Ollie, and he was separated from his owner, his best buddy, called Billy, a little boy. Ollie longs to be reunited with Billy. Ollie longs to go home. And driven by this homesickness, Ollie embarked on this long, dangerous, challenging journey to find Billy, to find his home, a place where he belongs. Since we start ICL 6 years ago, yeah, it's been 6 years, we've met over 10,000 people who can relate to this journey, who are seeking the kind of community where we all feel we belong. A community, a city, a society, a country, a world that no kids go to bed hungry, that there's no violence, no shootings, yeah. No hate, no racism, sexism, and that we treat our environment with awe rather than with dominance, where our government is not driven by greed. That's what we're all seeking, but we know it doesn't just exist out there. It's like some kind of utopia. It doesn't exist. We know that we have to help create that space, that community, that society. We know we have to make that change happen. Tonight, we gather here because we share that longing for social change. We yearn, we desire to make a difference, to feel that sense of belonging. So we organize and organize and organize some more to channel this longing into action, to find a home. And that's precisely what Christopher did. And I think I might even have seen Christopher just walked in. Ha! You know, as you're walking in, I thought I saw Christopher walking in. I timed it just perfectly, or you timed it just perfectly. Now, she started the African Center. There you are. Hey, you started, and your team started the African Center for Refugees a couple years ago. Right? And we've been supporting your team for quite a while. And you are channeling that sense of belonging, that longing for belonging, into action, and channeling that passion into motivating each other. And I heard you now have 75 volunteers, yeah, to create change. Yeah, that's amazing. They're all volunteers, 100% volunteers. Now, recently, a very generous donor, who's in this room, but I won't mention, stepped up and provided some seed funding for ICL to start a mentorship for change. It's a new program. And our friend, Bob Gallagher, stepped up. He's a board member of ICL, and he is coaching the African Christopher's team. And Bob, why don't you come and tell us about this mentorship, this coaching program? You're a lot taller than I am. That you've launched.
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. It's great that you're here, Christopher, and Felix as well. This is an amazing organization they have, but it's an organization that's actually very similar to a lot of the organizations that make up this 10,000 stories. These are people who come together to make change in their life. They are predominantly LGBT refugees all from Africa, who actually are here and have tremendous amounts of need. They are isolated. Christopher and gang are bringing them together, being able to build them into an organization that's making change and lobbying the government, providing supports for themselves to be able to make change in their own community and amongst each other and build that community. I have met with them, and I'm old enough to have been involved with many organizations. I've founded a few in my day, primarily queer organizations. And I cannot think of an organization that at this stage of their development is as passionate, as intelligent, and in need of being able to develop and bring their community together. I am in awe of what they are doing. It reminds me, 23 years ago, a group of young people came into my office and asked for my help and Olivia's help to actually start the Lesbian and Gay Bi Youth Line. There hadn't been a line where a queer person who was in distress, who had just been kicked out of their house or having trouble or even thinking about the worst case scenario could call and talk to another queer young person. And they said, we need that. We need your help in developing that. And it's that kind of organization has the kind of ability to grow. But just like the small group of people who ended up developing the Lesbian and Gay Bi Youth Line, they could very well have actually not gotten the support they needed and actually not being able to develop. And Christopher's group right now is exactly at that stage. They've gone through training. 30 of their members have gone through the Institute's training. They have an orientation meeting next few days even for another 30 or so people to join them as well. They're at that stage where they can change the world. They have put their sights on making sure the federal government includes refugees into the mandate letter that actually says that they should find a way to permanent resident and citizenship for undocumented workers, but to include refugees. So they have a purpose, they have a community, they're all ready to go. They've got some training, but to be honest, that's not enough. They need to be able to have some mentorship, some ability to take the training and extend it out. Right? It's not enough to take the Institute's training and going off on your own. You need that helping hand. And the mentorship program is exactly that. We are finally building, we're at a stage of the Institute to be able to build where we actually are able to take these organizations after we train them and help them develop, help them find funding, help them find networking, help them find an ability to do the structure and infrastructure they need. And that's what the mentorship program is all about. And I just want to thank this very generous donor who's made this possible. And he happens to be in this room, but he is a very shy kind of person. So I just want to give him a round of applause to say that we are the African Center for Refugees is just one of the organizations being mentored. There are many mentors now that are coming on board that work with Olivia. And I just want to thank the donor and thank all of you and thank the Institute for providing this next level of support.
Thank you, Bob. Wow. Thank you, Bob. Last year, we talked about digging deep into our stories, finding it. And here at ICL, can those of you that are facilitators, teachers, can you put up your hands? There's quite a few. Well, okay, you're surrounded. Okay, thank you. We talked about, right at the beginning, we set norms. We said we are creating a safe space, but also a brave space. A space that you can be a bit vulnerable, that you can come and understand your challenges, the injustice that you have experienced in your life, or even the pain you have experienced. And to own the grief, to feel it, to confront it, and find a way out of it, to turn that pain into strength. I certainly had to dig deep when my late husband, Jack Layton, passed away. I had to dig deep again when I lost an election, a couple of elections, after winning a whole lot of them all these years. And I was feeling lost. I had anxiety attacks. I said, what am I going to do? And I remember a Chinese proverb. Those of my Chinese friends that are here, what does that mean? It means that to be a leader, you must go deep into the core of bitterness. Own it. Eat it. It literally said, eat it, okay? I'm not kidding you. Eat bitterness. Endure it, the hardship, the suffering. Okay, that's one part of it. But here in ICL, we believe in not just eating it, but transforming it into that hardship, that pain, into sweetness. Yeah, sweetness, into power, into hope. That's, some of the people here call it sacredness, sacred, part of it. This realization of inner power, or you can call it being magical. Okay? And it's like finding beauty in deep mud, in a sea of mud, or finding the light in a very dark, despairing forest. A light within that shines so brightly that other people join in. And when we realize that we belong, that we're not alone, we find the strength in our collective light shines so bright and strong that it has the power to move mountains. Janet Marlowe is the living proof of that. Last year, she and Garth and Marge told us their dramatic stories. Some of you were here to listen to it, some are not. Let's see what they did with their pain and trauma. Okay, let's show it. And the magic is going to happen here. And we are going to turn off all the lights. Okay, here is Janet a year later.
CTV News, Vancouver Island Report.
Good evening. Thanks for being here. A proposed class action lawsuit has been filed against the RCMP, and it has its roots in Nanaimo.
A national institution under fire. The Mounties have a toxic culture that encourages the hatred of women and racist and homophobic attitudes.
Now, the woman who initiated one of those lawsuits, former RCMP constable Janet Merlot.
Janet Merlot.
Janet Merlot.
One of the truly important and prominent Canadian whistleblowers. Her name is Janet Merlot.
I knew when I joined the RCMP that I was joining a paramilitary organization that was male dominated. What I was unaware of, though, was to the depth of the misogyny and the sexual harassment and bullying that was alive and well within the force. In basic training, our drill instructor, our marching instructor, would yell out, "What was the worst year in the history of the RCMP?" And we were to reply, 1974, Corporal. And why was that the worst year? Because that's the first year women were allowed into the force, Corporal. When I got to my first posting in Nanaimo, things kind of went from bad to worse. I had a male supervisor that had a life-size blow-up doll, and he would have it inflated during the night shifts, and any females that came into his office to turn in any files that needed reading, he would ask them to stand next to the blow-up doll so he could compare statures. When I became pregnant with our first daughter, I was yelled at, screamed at, name-called. He said I had to make a choice. I had to get my priorities straight. I could either have a career in the RCMP or I could pop out kids my whole life. And his advice for me as I left his office was to keep my fucking legs closed the next time. That constant behavior eventually took its toll on every aspect of my health and my career. I'd call in sick. My hair was falling out in clumps. When I key the code in to go into the back door of the detachment to go to work, I would run to the bathroom and vomit. That was the reaction my body had to going into work. In 2009, I made my complaints formal, and the RCMP launched an investigation. For 2 years, they thoroughly investigated themselves and came back with a final report saying that nothing had happened. Nobody saw anything, nobody witnessed anything, nobody experienced anything. And I thought that was odd because some of the women had come to me and said that they had been interviewed and that they had been able to tell their story. I reached out to the then commissioner, begging him for help, and I got a letter back in the mail 25 months later telling me how seriously the RCMP took claims and allegations of harassment. 25 months later. In 2010, after 20 years, I took a medical pension and I left. I was off on stress leave and my doctor felt that I just couldn't go back, that the workplace was too toxic to ever return to. So now our story must become your story, and we can join together and lobby the government to correct this. Well, last year, as a result of Olivia's help, we developed a core team, which we came up with a name for a not-for-profit group called Breaking Barriers Together Association. And that core team then, in June of this year, we went to some really amazing leadership training through ICL, and we went with a vision of what we wanted to see, and we left there with a plan.
If there's one thing that really stood out to me in this program, it was the entire program. Every step of the way, I learned something new. I learned something of value. I will be revisiting the slides because this is so important.
Since that training, our core group has had weekly meetings, and we're doing our outreach. We're trying to engage Canadians to hear what we have to say and make our story their story, because it's a Canadian policing story. So yeah, our core group is very eager and now that we have the tools and the foundation, the possibilities are endless. If our core group was to have an idea of what the end game is, where we hope to be at the end of our journey, I think it's with the institution of an independent oversight and investigation body for our CMP misconduct. Independent oversight will bring accountability to all those officers where there's no bias, there's no fear of reprisal, a fear of losing career to speak out. It gives them the security to speak out about the wrongdoing, and it gives somebody other than the RCMP itself the ability to change it, because they've been given the opportunity for years and they haven't. In the spring of this year, there was a bill introduced, Bill C-20, that would give independent, that would create an agency or a commission actually, that would do independent oversight of the RCMP and the Canadian Border Services. And we're just waiting to see if that bill will get second reading in Parliament. And hopefully, if we can accomplish that, then I think we're going to be well on our way to making the legislative change that the RCMP needs. I am so excited. It's the, you know, we thought when we spoke out internally, the RCMP might respond, and that didn't happen. Our careers were done and we were outed. We thought when we won our class action lawsuit that then the government and the teary-eyed national apology from the commissioner, we thought that would be a commitment for better, and nothing substantial has changed. So this is what needs to be done. If they won't do it themselves, then the law has to direct them to do it. Well, 10, 12 years ago when this all started for me, and when we first went public with the class action, the public responded, and it wasn't very nice. And there was a lot of hate mail. There was a lot of hurtful, hateful comments about the women, including from Commissioner Paulson, who said our claims were outlandish, and he couldn't help it if people's aspirations outweighed their abilities. So he basically called us failures. And here we are 10 years later, after a massive class action lawsuit and no change. And I can see more change in the last year than in the preceding 10 years. I was listening to an audiobook on my deck one day, and the guy in the book said, you know, I was set up to fail, but I was not set up to quit. And I thought, that's it. We're going to have some things that people aren't engaged in. And it's okay to fail, but it's not okay to give up. And I thought, that's exactly what I needed to hear today. So.
Yeah. They're pretty brave people. Janet, Alex, Cheryl, Garth, Mars, Joanne, that turned their grief, their trauma, and pain into action, into change. Bill C-20 has gone through second reading, is at committee stage. They're ready with their amendments, and it has, at second reading, it has all party consent. You know what that means. That means it's going to pass. Yeah, I know. These folks came from across Canada, and they met with their Conservative MPs, the Conservative critic, Liberals, anybody that would listen to them. They've been talking to them. And so working as a team, they turned longing for justice to a place where they found their power to do it. Working as a team, they are moving mountains. Mountains that have been created by decades of tolerating hate, tolerating incompetence, tolerating injustice, tolerating this horrible system, rock solid system of racism, sexism, and all those isms, all the mountains. Now, Bob talked about the African Center, and there are many of Janet's out there, and we talked about digging deep to find our stories, right? And I know that we are, you know what Olivia always ends up doing at the end of the speech? Yes, that's true. Because you helped us create that 10,000 stories of change, okay? All of you. Whether you're teaching, volunteering, donating your time, your money, you make this change possible. We are so grateful. We are now asking you to step up even more. let me bring up Kirsten Coney, who is going to launch the 10,000 Stories of Change fundraising campaign. Aha, yes.
Thank you so much, Olivia. And thank you, everyone in this room. As Olivia said, all of these stories would not be possible without you. So our plan is to launch the 10,000 Stories of Change campaign so that we can fund another 10,000 stories. But we need you. Each and every one of you has given of your time, talent, or treasure, sometimes all three, to ICL. And for that, we're incredibly grateful. And we know these have been really difficult times in so many ways with COVID, a recession, and we understand that. And we all know that that times are hard, and we appreciate everybody in any way that you can give. And Olivia has a menu of options for you that she's going to let you know.
Actually, you're going to announce, and I will announce it. We have a donor that stepped up. You heard about this, and he said he will donate $10,000. $10,000. And this coming year, and maybe even more years to come. So we thought that we'll start off, because we believe that we're not going to go away after a year. So we're going to start off, and we have other people that are not putting in 10, but they are putting in 5. Have Anna?
We do. We actually have, we got a message earlier from Anna Lopez, who's a member of the Order of Canada. She's the former chair of CAMH. She's an amazing philanthropist. And Anna is going to help us start our Ambassadors for Change donor collective, because she knows there's strength in numbers. And so the Ambassadors for Change program is a commitment of $5,000 over 5 years to really help ICL stabilize our funding base, to make sure that we can plan ahead and fund Janet and all of the Janets that are there from coast to coast.
Hey, so I'm going to ask how many of you would give me $5,000 to kickstart this. Whoa! Wow! Neil and Aman, and I see Lynn. Wow! 3. Woohoo! Thank you. This is 5,000 over 5. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anybody else? The 5,000? Anybody else? I'm going to come down to 2,000. Anyone? 2,000 1 year, 1,000 1 year. Anyone? It is a bit high. It's okay. All right. Well, I'm going to come down to how much? 500? Okay. Those of you that are interested in 500, just one time. It doesn't have to be every year. Anyone? It's still a bit much. Okay. Anyone for 200? Okay. All right. All right. 1, 2. Thank you, Chris. Chris actually is our provincial member of parliament right here in this riding, or nearby. Thank you. And one over here, and Sabrina, thank you. Those of you that are wearing masks, if I don't name you because I don't recognize you. Oh, wow. Liz, thank you. She's a volunteer, our facilitator, helps out in every way. One more. Okay, all right. Thank you, Shauna. Anybody else? Okay. So what I thought we would do is to ask you that every month, because we want you to become our member. It's really not how much money you give. It's that we want to, every month, have a small amount coming in. You know how we could build and build and build and build? So $20 a month is less than $1 a day. So we're wondering whether you could commit to $20 a month. And that would mean that if there are 10, okay, my math is, well, or 20, that would give me 2,400, something like that. And yeah, that would be a good thing. And then the more of us, we can just build it as a big, big team. So $20 a month will put us into a very good financial footing. Actually, Kristen suggests that. Okay. Anyone for $20 a month to join the ICL membership and with a membership you can. Oh, thank you. Lily, thank you. Anybody else? 20 or 10? Hey, thank you, thank you. 20 or even $10 a month. $10, it doesn't matter how much. $10 or $20 a month, that would provide us with a great financial base. So fill in the form, whether it's 100, 10, 20, just support us. And I just saw my grandkids coming in. Yeah, Solace she was the one that was watching Lost Ollie with me 2 nights ago, where I first, and Beatrice is there too, okay. They just came in. And yeah, I just want to just say thank you in closing, that it is sort of a family feeling. It's a great team. And those of you that have been teaching with us all these years, Sabrina, for example, it's been a long time. We met each other at Marshall Gannon's course. And those that I knew, we're always looking for more facilitators, instructors, and more students. We have quite a lot of contracts coming up. And do join us, tell your friends, and connect with us. And Dawn is messaging that you, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Oh, okay, later on, before we go, we would love to take a photo of all of you. Thank you for your very generous donation of time and very generous donation of money. We have a donor here that have probably want to remain nameless, but just about a year ago have donated $250,000 for the ICL. Yeah, I know. Yeah, and that enable us to do all these training. A lot of our trainings are actually pro bono, for free. So thank you. Yeah. Yes, please do. This is Cindy, our new board member. Come. This is going to be open. No. I have to be useful, or else I get kicked off the board. You just joined.
Sandra told me that. Just kidding. No, I was going to say there's other ways to donate, and donating your attention here to take that out into the world and tell people about ICL. How many of you work in places other than schools and at TMU and at ICL? We all belong to other places. The number of people I come across that are like, ICL, what's that? And that's the human capital that we need. And that's really important because it's free and it's the most powerful thing that we actually all own. And I hope that before and after of Janet can be made available, because those of us that have been supporting Breaking Barriers Together, people are asking me, what's the story and what's happening? And I would love to be able to send that off to the people that wrote their MPs and are supporting them, but they don't even know. They're just going on like, you got to do this. Like, okay. I would like to have more than that to give them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. We will send all of the videos to you, so you can send. Thank you, Cindy. That was a great suggestion. So you can then send it to your friends to tell them what's happening. Those of you that have signed petitions and written to the MPs, you can tell them that. And yeah, and Bill C5 with the Just Royal sent last Thursday, you can tell them that too. And there are lots and lots of things you can tell. And oh, that book is full of stories. Take a lot of copies of it and give it out. That's our annual report. Okay. And I know Chris Glover. There are several amazing environmentalists here, like Sabrina and Amanda and Liz that works from T before. There is a bill in front of the Ontario government that destroys the green belts and they make housing. Yeah, I know. I will not preach. Those of you that are organizing against it, you can get together right here and talk about what you can do and sign letters, etc., and join the Green Belt Alliance, etc. Go and talk to, say, Sabrina or Chris and Amanda. Those of you that are environmentalists, just talk to them. Okay. Thank you for being here. And oh, hang on. Back to Sandra.
Give her a big round of applause. We thank you, Olivia, for your continued leadership and commitment and for continuing to guide and motivate us. Tonight, we heard just a few of the 10,000 stories of change because of your involvement with ICL. Whether it be your time, talent, or treasure that you share, we thank you for giving so generously of yourself. 10,000 stories of change. It's quite amazing. But that's just the beginning. Think about the 10,000, the 100,000, the million more stories to be told because of you. And I hope you are as inspired as I am. I am asked that if you're still ready to give, put your hand up, they'll find you. But you can do it online when you go home and you think about it. You're going to give more than the 25 or the 50 or the 1,000 or the 5,000. I know you will. You know, you don't want to put your hand up now because you say, I need to look at my budget. And I need to talk. Don't talk to nobody. Don't talk to the wife. Don't talk to the husband. Just do it. Go on, what is the changeleaders.ca/, don't forget the slash, donate. /donate. I know I will. Please enjoy the rest of the evening. Visit with old friends. Visit where the speaker's corner. Okay. What you do in the speaker's corner? Oh, you can, and what they're going to do with it. And boys, I'm learning. They're videoing it if you want to do that. And you can be part of a live art installation. The artists are Susan Black and Rob Ryder to bring in this. Where are they? Susan and Rob? So it's on the back if you ever wanted to have your picture on a wall. And we want to say thank you to the event sponsors, CWA and Janet Salzberg, Tom Masterson and Lucy Peltier for sharing your music, Dawn for sharing the land, Dawn T. Miracle for sharing the land acknowledgement, Mark Thompson for your story, Janet Merlot and her team for their amazing progress. And I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. We want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support and commitment. And remember, it is because of Anansi, the spider, who gave you all common sense why you're here tonight to give more money. So please, go home. ICL, Institute for Change Leader. No. Yes, changeleaders.ca. Say it with me. /donate. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us online for this celebration of our 6th anniversary of ICL. It's been really fantastic to spend the evening. Does anyone have any reflections or things you want to share from, or inspiration you took from that you want to share before we sign off tonight? Thank you so much, Laura, in the chat here. Michelle, thank you, everybody. It's been really wonderful spending time with you folks tonight and celebrating. And if you want to stay on, I know someone's going to be moving us around the room, but that's the end of our programming tonight. So thank you so much for joining and for being with us. Nicolisa in the chat says, the power of resiliency, eating that bitterness and making something sweet, super inspired by all the examples of the change leaders. Thank you, Nicolisa. Good night. Dorothy, how did you find the evening? Was there any moments you were particularly inspired by? Dorothy? Yeah. Judy, thank you so much. Have a great night. Take care, folks. Good night, Jane. Thank you, Jane. Thanks, Alec. Thanks, Jean. Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Adeline.